Hey, it's Sonia, and welcome to the Smarta Podcast.
This episode is pure gold for everyone that wants to become more confident, that wants to be able to speak in a room so people put down their phones and turn their heads to look at you. I am in shock by the amount of amazing wisdom I learned in these 40 minutes with Juan Bendana. He is a globally recognized confidence expert, a keynote speaker, and now the author of the transformational book, Confident by Choice, the 3 small decisions that build everyday courage. When you're watching this, if throughout the episode you're gonna get an ounce of interest and of curiosity, make your way to Amazon or wherever you get your books from, because today on the 5th of August, Confident by Choice, Juan Bendania's book is launching. Juan Bendana is a highly sought-after speaker, entrepreneur, and coach to top CEOs, Olympians, and Grammy Award-winning artists, as well as actors and Fortune 500 leaders. He works with globally recognized organizations, helping their leaders get to the next level. But it hasn't always been this way. What started out as a rocky road through community college and entrepreneurial misfires eventually led to his first speaking gig. He says, as you can see on Instagram, that it was terrible, but he absolutely loved it. That moment ignited a mission that's taken him around the world, helping thousands of leaders tap into their courage and show up as their best selves. Today, he has developed the Confidence Cycle, a science-backed framework based on insights from over 250,000 leaders. Juan's work helps people close the gap between their self-image and their goals, build confidence that lasts, and take action even in uncertainty. If you've ever doubted your potential or questioned if you're ready, you couldn't have picked a better episode to watch. Juan Bendana, welcome on the Smarta Podcast. It's amazing to have you on here.
Sonia, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. We can already tell. I mean, you're all hyped up, and I just described you before we kicked off the recording as a walking shot of espresso. I'm so excited to find out more about your story because it was so inspiring, starting from getting rejected from almost every university you went to then being mentioned and featured in Harvard Business Review. It's crazy. It's finally went full circle. I can't wait to see how people are going to love your new book, Confident by Choice, and how we're going to talk about it today. It's amazing. So where I want to take you first is I want you to imagine you can talk directly with the person listening. And from all your amazing experience and endurance and discipline that you've had over the past years, what would the top 3 key takeaways be from your story that people sitting down here today to listen should take away?
I think the first is this idea that no one will change your life for you. You know, I, for the longest time, was waiting for the right person or the right opportunity or the right breakthrough moment. And I realized that it wasn't coming until I was the first one to participate in my own success. I think oftentimes we don't participate in our growth or our progression. So I would say the first thing is understanding that no one is coming and that we need to be the first ones to show up for our lives. The second thing is to understand that people aren't thinking of you as much as you think that they are. You know, one of my favorite quotes of all time is by Eleanor Roosevelt. You wouldn't worry so much about what others think of you if you realized how seldom they do. And we have so many decisions that we make day to day that are based on how other people will perceive us. And when we realize that people aren't really thinking of us, they're thinking of themselves, it can unlock our ability to focus on our lives instead of the perspective other people have of our lives. And then the third thing would be understanding that confidence, but really any pursuit, starts with a spark. You need sort of an ignition to the engine to get things started. I think people try and go right to confidence, right to growth, right to weight loss, right to 6 figures a year, right to the end result, as opposed to saying, like, what is the spark at the very beginning? You know, the hardest part of a run is tying your shoes. So the start of something is the hardest thing for people to understand. If we could get really good at the start of something, then we'll be in the race. And it's far easier to continue running than it is to get out of bed, put on your shoes, and go. Yeah.
I love that. I really love that. The hardest part of starting a run is tying your shoes. Can I just say before we started recording, I looked you up on Instagram and the first reel that popped up was this amazing one where you had this call to action to the audience where you said that the ultimate opportunity of igniting confidence is to show up with the level of enthusiasm that you want your audience and the people in the room to have. And as soon as I let you in, you gave me that enthusiasm and I saw how it instantly could be that spark and that ignition for me to get into a better mood and to be fully present here with you. I love it. What I want to talk more about is your amazing book coming out on the 5th of August, Confident by Choice. The 3 small decisions that build everyday courage. And it's all about letting go and perfection. How do we do that in today's hyper-connected world where we have all certain types of pressures? How do we become more confident?
I think that really is the $1,000,000 question of how do we build confidence in a world that oftentimes feels like it's taking it away
Yeah.
or gives us more reasons to doubt ourselves than feel confident in ourselves. And I think the challenge that most people run into is that they spend the majority of their time in an external POV as opposed to an internal POV. They're thinking about the world outside of them, how people are perceiving them, the
Absolutely.
judgments of other people, and they're not thinking about themselves, their own growth, how they see themselves. You know, I always get the question of how do you let go of what other people think of you? Spend more time thinking of what you think of you, how you talk to you. Because and this is something I think one of the most important things to acknowledge is the fact that everyone experiences that. It's something in psychology called the spotlight effect, where we think people are thinking of us all of the time or have a spotlight on us. So naturally, what does that force us to do? People please, hoping not to disappoint anyone, but then that ties our confidence to external validation, which makes it very easy to tear down, or it can make it feel like our lives are an audition. It can make it feel like we need to put on this persona or this character. So I think if more people focused on the fact of their own growth, of their own progress, of how they see themselves, as opposed to how the world sees them, and instead of trying to strive for perfect, instead focusing on striving for better, striving for growth, then you actually give yourself proof as to you are the person that you said you were going to be. You know, confidence, saying that, well, I'm going to feel super confident, but giving yourself no proof as to why you should is just delusional. Like, you can't feel confident in the gym if you never go. You can't feel confident in relationships if you never say hi to new people. You can't feel confident in your finances if you never log into your bank account. Like, you need to put yourself in an environment of growth into that specific area of your life so that you can actually make it better. Because when you make it better, you feel more confident in it because it feels like you've taken control over that area. So I would say one of the most important things is for people to focus on their internal world as opposed to the external world. But that's hard. That's hard to do. It really is.
It is. It absolutely is. And I want to take you back to the spotlight effect that you talked to me about, because my mom is a people pleaser as far as I've known her. And ever since I started telling her that if she does something out of the blue, let's say dancing in the middle of the public, in the middle of a crowd when we're traveling to another city, she has this impression that all eyes go directly on her. But actually, even if people look at her, they'll probably forget about what happened 2 minutes after they look away. So my biggest accomplishment was that this summer when we went in Spain, she started dancing around in Barcelona, and she said, as soon as I shift that perspective from even if they notice me, they're not going to remember it as long as I do. I love how as soon as you just take that quick mindset shift, instantly you can have your own life living it at 100% rather than narrowing it down and putting a filter on it. That just reminded me of this little scenario that happened recently. And because you talked to me about how we can become more confident, I want to draw you into how you open the book, which is something that you say about confidence is a verb. And that confident is actually something that we can become and own, and that we're not born with it, but we can actually build it, because not everyone is naturally confident, naturally showing up and putting themselves up on a stage, let's say like you, public speaking. It's something that can be built. Can you break down the confidence cycle and how it helps people take action when they do feel scared?
Yeah, absolutely. I think confidence is something that oftentimes is associated to, oh, that person was just born with confidence.
Yeah.
They've always been that way, which often is never
Yeah.
is ever the case
Yeah.
with confident people. Sure, some people naturally are a little more enthusiastic, a little more charismatic, a little bit more sure of themselves, but confidence is something that we build in every category or every area of our lives. But the question mark is, how do we do that? Now, in the nucleus of confident by choice is really this idea around the confidence cycle, which is the system that I believe is the answer to building confidence for those of us who weren't born with it, that didn't have the genetics of self-belief. And I think it was rooted in, because I had seen all of the research on confidence, which basically tells you that the better you become at something, the more confident you'll feel. In psychology, they call this the confidence competent loop. And there's research dating back to the 1970s about here's how you build confidence. The better you become at something, the more confident you'll feel at it. The more confident you'll feel, the more likely you are to invest more time and build more competence. Okay, great. So it's this loop. The only challenge with that is that there are two things that hold people back from even starting the process of building competence or getting better at something, which is they don't have the energy for it and they're afraid. Most people don't go for another level in their lives or a goal because they're too tired at this one. They just don't have the energy for it. They're just not, they don't have the ignition, the spark to say, I'm actually going to go do this thing. I'm going to get up off the couch and I'm going to go outside, or I'm going to go to the networking event, or I'm going to build the website, or I'm going to launch the podcast, or I'm going to start the business. Like, we don't have the spark. There's something in psychology called activation energy, which is essentially the mental effort or motivation required to start. It's the same thing of like tying your shoes is really hard to get out on the run, but once you're on the run, it's far easier. It's much harder at the very beginning. That's the energy we need to basically start the process. So the first step in the confidence cycle is to generate micro energy, a little spark just to get started. The second thing that holds people back is that often they're afraid. What if it doesn't work? What if I get rejected? What if I fail? What if people judge me for it? What if? And that holds people back, a lack of courage, a lack of, I'm going to put myself into that moment. People won't take the action if they feel like there's too much on the line for them. So the second step in the confidence cycle is to practice micro courage, which is essentially putting yourself into the moment of fear, putting yourself into the arena. Like at the beginning, I used to be terrified of speaking in front of groups. So my micro courage needed to be, I need to get in front of people. I need to be okay with making a fool of myself. I need to be okay with messing up or dancing in the streets of Barcelona. That is a moment of micro courage that then facilitates the third step, which is micro action, which is, oh, okay, we all know, the better we become, the more confident we'll feel. So we need to take an action to develop, to grow. That's actually going on the run. That's going to the networking event. That's saying hi to the pretty girl or the pretty guy that you want to say hi to at the coffee shop that you've been going to every week. Like it's the small moment that you take an action, you take a step, and then that leads to micro proof, which is essentially confirmation of I am who I said I was going to be. So if you, for example, because a lot of people's goal is like, I want to get in shape or I want to lose weight. If you generate the energy to sign up for the gym membership, you take the courageous step of getting into an environment where you don't know how to do anything, and you go to the gym every single day for 7 days a week for 6 months, at the end of that, you're going to have some proof looking back to say, I actually did all of that. It confirms the identity that you have as a confident person in that area. So the proof that you give ultimately leads to a change in identity, because often our confidence will be cemented once we see ourselves in that way. You can't just be confident at something for 30 days and then
Yeah.
on day 31 think it's going to magically transform. You
Yeah.
need to invest consistently into that so that at the end of the process, it's essentially strengthening the identity that you have of yourself, the self-image that you carry, where you're not just someone that works out, you are now like you're a healthy person. It's now to the layer of identity as opposed to something that you do every once in a while. So that's sort of the confidence cycle in a nutshell. But the first two pieces, the micro energy and micro courage, are things that so many people miss, and they try and jump right to action, and then they wonder why it doesn't work. That's why you see New Year's resolutions, 76% of them fall off by February. Why? Because they only focused on the action. They only focused on the diet. They only focused on the website. They only focused on the action, but action in and of itself, we will run out of gas, we'll run out of energy, and there will come a time where we need to be courageous and the stakes become too high, and then we quit, and then we fall off. So those two pieces leading up to action are just as important as the action itself.
I agree. And you've made me think about this quote that I've learned recently reading a couple of nonfiction books, and it's successful people will fail more than unsuccessful people will even try.
Mm.
And you've just been talking to me about rejection and how, you know, just starting is actually the catalyst of achieving your goals and getting to where you want to get. But because now is a time where everyone is graduating university, I want to take you back to when you were my age. I'm 17. I'm going to apply very soon to university. And I want to ask you a personal question right now about if you could talk to your younger self, what would be the one piece of advice looking back at everything that you've achieved that you wish you knew when you just started out?
You have complete ownership for the results that you get in life. Everything you do, every failure that you have, every rejection that you face, every win that you have is on you. Because it's so easy, especially when you're going into a new chapter, when
Yeah.
you're graduating, you're going to
Yeah.
a new school, you're applying to university or college. It's so easy to feel like, oh, you get rejected from your top school, you blame the
Yeah.
school, or you blame the teacher that you had that was
Yeah.
supposed to prepare you, or you blame the references that you had, they weren't strong enough, or you blame your parents because they weren't supportive of the idea in the first place. It's so easy to blame external forces as to why you did not do the thing that you wanted to do. And I think 17, 18-year-old me really needed to understand that everything in his life was because of him. And at that time, I was like directionless. I didn't have the grades to get into any sort of school that I wanted to get into. And I saw my friends going for all of these great schools and they had prepared for years. And I remember I didn't have any of those options. And I blamed everything else except for the only person that was to blame, which was me. I focused on everybody under the sun except for the one person that actually mattered. So I think if more people took ownership for the results that you get are because of the work you put in or the work you didn't put in, if you could take ownership to say, this is on me, my life is on me, I'm the one that is responsible for what I do and what I'm able to create, I think that version of me would have been far, far better off, to say the least.
I want to go deeper into that and ask you, what was the point where you realized that you had to take accountability and overcome the rejection in your own life and pursue what you actually wanted?
Yeah, I think it was an iterative process, but there was definitely a low point where I, as a kid, had always been overweight. And it was always like 20, 30 pounds, like nothing crazy. And then after I was in a relationship with this blonde American cheerleader, because I'm originally from Toronto, Canada, even though I'm living in the US now. But this girl that I thought was going to be the one, and we had the plans. We knew what city we were moving to. We knew what kind of dog we wanted. Like it was set. And that relationship out of nowhere suddenly ended. And when it fell apart, so did I. And I stopped trying in class and in all classes. I let myself go, and I got to a place where I was 75 pounds overweight, obese. I developed binge eating disorder and was just spiraling. Then food quickly became not enough. So then I turned to alcohol, and it was really a low point where I remember I was taken in an ambulance to the hospital for alcohol poisoning. And it was just I knew something needed to change, but I needed to participate in that change. And I think the first step in changing ourselves is believing that we can be that new person, that new version of us.
Yeah.
So at that point, and it wasn't like an overnight, I'm a completely new person. It was, I need to change something. And oftentimes we will change because something from outside of us or something from within us. Two things that change your life. Something outside of us, we get a new opportunity, a new relationship, something happens, or something within us decides, I'm going to change something. I'm going to be in effect of. So I think that really started the process of no one's coming. Like I have to be the one that changes things for my life. And that was sort of the catalytic moment in my life to say, like, okay, this changes now. Kind of like reaching a point of satiation, like the enough is enough moment. The like, I'm done. This is done. This ends now. I'm like, and I hope that most people don't get to a low point like that in life, but oftentimes the pain in life is bigger leverage than the joys in life. You know,
Yeah.
people will change far more because of challenge than they do because of great things. So that was a challenge that really was the start and the catalyst for it all.
You talked to me earlier about confident is a lifestyle. It's not a 30-day challenge. I want to ask you more about how we can become a confident person forever and for longer periods. What would be the one mindset shift that you swear by in your keynote speak event where you tell the audience that they need to adopt this one thing to build real lasting confidence?
Align who you are with the goals that you have. It blows my mind how many people have a goal and they're like, I want to make $1 million. And then they never look at their finances or they're working,
Yeah.
20 hours a week. Like, so their actions aren't in alignment with their goals. So if we could, or like, I want to run a marathon and they go on one run every other week,
Yeah.
their actions aren't aligned with the goals that they have. So if you can reverse engineer the best of your life, meaning here are all the goals that I have. Like, don't set smart goals. Don't be realistic. Don't turn yourself down. Don't set goals that are focused on your strengths. Just set
Yeah.
stupid, ridiculous goals. This is what I want to be able to create in this life. Okay, great. Now, what has to happen today? And how do you need to live this week? And what do you need to get done this month in order to make those things happen? So if you want to, build amazing relationships because you just moved to a new city, what are you doing today that's moving you toward that? Because many people, they set a goal and then they just put it on the wall and they think
Yeah.
that's going to be enough and they're going to law of attraction their way to a goal, as opposed to saying, like, am I living in alignment with the goals that I have set as a desire for my future? Am I living in alignment with that's what I said I wanted? Now am I living it? Am I doing it? Okay, I said I wanted to lose the 30 pounds. I said I wanted to raise my income. I said I wanted to make new friends. I said I wanted to practice my faith more. I said I wanted to invest in my relationship. I said I wanted to spend more time with my kids. Like, whatever it may be, are you living in alignment with that? So I would say, do your actions and your future goals line up? Because often the answer is no. And if we can change that, I think that is one of the first steps and the most important pieces of it all.
Juan, if more people listen to your advice and actually took it and would implement it in their lives, by the time the next New Year's Eve came along, 76% of people failing their New Year's resolutions would actually bump down to at least 20%. I know everything that you're saying makes complete sense, and I've seen it in my life as well with family or friends. Many times we stick to something on a short term and we get this boost of motivation. And as soon as we go into a vacation, suddenly that lifestyle is put on pause and not adopted into how you're living your whole life. And I want to move you into a different direction now, in particular about success on stage, because you cap your events to 50 to 60 per year to be able to spend time with your family and relax. So my question is, when you do engage in keynote events, what makes you make sure that they are successful? What qualities and characteristics do put in one to make sure that the audience will leave inspired and will go ahead and take action in their life?
Yeah, one piece on sort of the segment before we dive into
Yeah.
this that I thought of, one of the questions that I ask most often, which genuinely will change the way you show up in the world, is
Let's hear
if
it.
someone were following you around
Yeah.
for the past 30 days, would they say this is someone that is serious about their goals? If someone were to shadow you 24 hours a day for the past 30 days, would they say this is someone that is serious about the goals that you have? Because that is the ultimate, like, I don't know,
Yeah.
maybe. Like, and sometimes we let ourselves, we won't, just like if we have dinner plans with a friend at 7, we'll probably show up on time if we're a
Yeah.
good friend. But we will let ourselves down so much more often than
Indeed.
we would let someone in our lives down. Like, we'll show up for our friends, but often we don't show up for ourselves. So if we were to ask ourselves, like, if someone were following me around, if there was a documentary being done of my life over
Yeah.
the past 30 days, would they say this is someone that is serious about their goals? So that's something, just a question to ask yourself in terms of like how I prepare to hopefully do a great job for keynotes, whether it's a room of 25 or, a arena of 5,000, 10,000, is always an obsession with being so prepared that it facilitates and allows me to be myself. Miles Davis was a famous jazz musician, and he said, one of my favorite quotes is, "It took me 10 years to learn to play like myself." And like that, when it comes to artistry, when it comes to mastery at something, we underestimate how much it takes. People often will see the finished product. They will see the nice video. They'll see the hour, 45-minute keynote on stage where there was no buts. Like, it's just seamless. And they're like, oh, they're just really good at communication. Or they see like Steph Curry score 40 points in a game over game over game, but they don't understand that he takes 500 shots a day, every single day, including summer, including Saturdays and Sundays. So like, I think it's an obsession with preparation. And I'm not sure who said this. So I think it's Tony Robbins who said this, but I've heard it quoted by multiple people. But I think he was the sort of the original person that said this, that what you practice in private will get rewarded in public. What you practice in private will get rewarded in public. Meaning no one, like whether it's a keynote presentation for American Express or Disney or Zillow or Nationwide or Lindt Chocolate, which I just did their event a few months ago, and they sent like 60 pounds of chocolate to our house. Oh, it was crazy. Like, it was insane. But that 1 hour or that 45 minutes, I probably spent 40 hours, 50 hours, 100 hours working on that segment. And there's a lot of events in the fall that I'm going to be doing that I'm preparing for now. So I would say the number one thing that has cemented the ability to show up naturally on stage is an over obsession with preparation and just being so committed to creating an amazing experience. Like, that would be the number one thing for sure.
Over the past years that I've been reading self-help books, you need to at least partake in 10,000 hours of practice before you become a master at what you do. Can I ask you about how we can stick to our authentic selves and when we're pursuing our goals, and how we cannot get carried away by the distractions that come in our life?
I would say it's kind of like a contrarian view, but like, there's so much conversation and talk around authenticity. I think authenticity is something you need to practice. As someone who is a recovering socially awkward person, like, I would feel social anxiety at a level 9 or 10 going to a party. If I didn't know anyone, I would either go to the bathroom or pretend to be on my phone. Struggled with like introducing myself to strangers, or I would even get in a conversation and I would kind of, when you kind of put on a persona when you're talking to someone new, and you feel like a weird version of yourself. And I realized that authenticity is something you need to practice. You need to get good at. So how do we do that practically? Next time you go to Starbucks or a coffee shop, strike a conversation while you're waiting, as opposed to being on your phone. Reach out to be on a podcast, even if you are not like writing a book or you're not,
Yeah.
don't consider yourself a thought leader, like reach out, be on a podcast to have an unfiltered 30-minute, 45-minute, hour conversation on camera. Like say something next time you and your friends go out to dinner, like share a story, like practice authenticity. Practice being more yourself, because authenticity, honestly, is a skill set. Some people are really good at being themselves, really, really good. Others, myself included, are not. I was really bad at being myself, and I only recently, after delivering probably 400, 500 keynotes, I now feel more like I feel like myself on stage for the first time after 7 years. 8 years, So I think for some people it takes a lot longer, but like just practice authenticity. Sounds ridiculous, but like practice it, because it's something you can get better at, genuinely.
Absolutely. And this ties in with one of your phrases about trading the pressure to be perfect for the courage of being real. And I think this is something that you obviously apply in your own life. What I'm most interested in now is shifting you back to your book, Confident by Choice. I want to give you a 60-second challenge where you're going to be persuading the listener as to why they should go and pre-order your book when it comes out on the 5th of August and become a more confident person to get their hands on it.
Ooh, 60 seconds?
Yeah,
Okay.
if we can boil it down to that, it would be amazing.
Time starts now. All of us have another version of ourselves that we have yet to tap into. And what I know is that what got us here is not going to get us there. You've done very well for yourself leading up to this moment in time, but there is another level that maybe you felt before, that you've sensed before, that has maybe whispered to you before, and that is really the potential of who you can be. But there are so many things that are holding you back from that. And this book is genuinely a guide to break through that barrier, to get to the next level of who you are, as opposed to staying at the version of yourself right now. Because you could be content, you could be happy, you could be okay right now, but to get to another place where you are, to get to where you would like to be, you're going to need new tools. And this is the roadmap of those new tools. I hope that was 60 seconds. I'm not sure if it was.
Congratulations.
But yeah.
Virtual high five. It was great.
Yes. Let's freaking
Amazing. So I want to move you now. Successful congratulations for passing that challenge into the world of traditions here on the Smarter Podcast, particularly into the world of literature with the first one, because I love to read. And I want to know what, Juan Bendana, are your top two books that you've ever read in your life that have completely changed your mindset or your perspective through which you view life?
Number one is easy. The Alchemist. That is, if you have not read The Alchemist, that is the best. Yeah, it is literally right.
Yeah,
I
read
thought
it.
that was it because I saw it. It was like a little blurred. That is
It's
the
on
best.
my bookshelf. Absolutely. Yeah,
That is
I
the
read
best
it.
fiction, personal development, personal growth book of all time, in my opinion. That book's extraordinary. And
I'm
number
with you on this
two, just looking at my bookshelf, number two would be The Talent Code by Daniel Coyle. It talks about basically the process of building world-class talent and how we do that, and how world-class talent is built in the brain, and the process of like the neural pathways that fire, and then the myelin, which is like the insulation that wraps around the neural pathways. It's fascinating. And it was the first book that showed me that you can build world-class skill even if you are not genetically gifted at basically anything. And it's really good. It is really, really good.
I love that. The Alchemist and the Talent Code.
Yeah.
Amazing. Second tradition. Are you ready?
Yes.
This one is about asking my previous guest to leave a question for the next one.
Loved
In
it.
which case, Jimmy Cannon, voice coach, left you over this short, amazing question for you to answer. And it's this. How do you differentiate between confidence and arrogance?
Great question. So there is, when it comes to confidence, there are sort of two pillars to confidence. There's self-esteem, which is the way we see ourselves.
Yeah.
And then there's self-efficacy, which is how good we are at something, our ability, right? So the challenge with self-confidence is that oftentimes people have these two out of balance. They have a level 10 self-efficacy. They're really good at something. They're like really talented, but they don't see themselves as talented. They don't have a good self-esteem. Or vice versa, they have a really high self-esteem. They think they're the best, but they suck. That oftentimes arrogance is thinking that you are better than, like, you see yourself as better than you actually are. And I think self-confidence is about balancing the scales and understanding and having a healthy view of yourself, but then also having a understanding that you have a really good efficacy, you have a really good ability. So let's say someone that is confident in golf and they're really good at golf, but they also see themselves as like, yeah, I'm a pretty good golfer. Like, I'm good. Versus someone that's arrogant, they oftentimes arrogance is rooted in insecurity because they feel like they need to compensate for a lack of skill set. So their esteem is completely inflated as opposed to having those scales balanced. So I think the difference is having arrogance is really an overbelief in one's own ability that is rooted in insecurity, when self-confidence is a healthy belief in who you are based on what you are able to do.
I agree. And I completely look at the two and think you cannot have one without the other, and vice versa. It has to be both that, lead you in towards being a confident person. I wanted to ask you, because I started the podcast in the same way, I want to end the episode likewise. If you could talk directly with a person listening, for any young professionals out there, any advice that you'd like to leave them with?
Be more valuable than anyone else. Blow people away. Blow people away in terms of how you show up in the world. Be a little more engaged. Be a little more present. Be a little more enthusiastic. Tip a little more. You can change someone's day with a $5 tip. Like sometimes, like, go to Starbucks and tip double. And like, you transform that day. It just when you put that kind of energy out there into the world, like, just be extraordinary. If they ask you to do something, do a little more. Like, show up a little more engaged. If they go above and beyond, because we are living in a time where too often people do the bare minimum just to get by, and they call it efficiency and they call it productivity, as opposed to being the person that just goes above and beyond and just shows up in a way that just wows people. Like, if you can be that person, you not only will be successful, you will get rewarded for it, but also you're irreplaceable. And with AI set to replace a number of industries, not just careers, like industries, I think one of the most important assets is you and building the person that you are, because AI can replace a whole lot of jobs, but AI can't replace someone that brings the full version of themselves to the table, to the conversation, to the room, that is that intangible. So I would say just do more. Do more. Like, in a world where people are doing less and the 4-hour work weeks of the world, it's like, don't fall into that trap. Like, be extraordinary, be exceptional, and do more.
And have that human touch with everywhere you go, and it will definitely create that ripple effect to, apart from adding a smile on people's faces, that will carry on, hopefully, that energy into their own interactions later on throughout the day.
100%.
Juan, thank you so much for being on the Smart Podcast. It was an absolute pleasure, and I wish you best of luck with the pre-order and launch day of your new book.
Sonia, thank you so much for having me. It's been a blast chatting.
My favorite takeaway from the episode was that no one will change your life for you. You have full accountability of how far you make it in life, and who you sit down at table with, and who your close circle of friends are, and if they support you in not only the bad times, but the good times, when you're thriving and when you're full of success. If you've liked Confident by Choice and his persuasive pitch 60-second challenge to you, then definitely make sure to check it out. Please rate this episode 5 stars or subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're currently watching this, because it's going to keep helping us bring amazing guests that share amazing knowledge to you and make you grow stronger. And with that being said, if no one told you this today, I want to be the first that tells you that I truly believe in your ability of building and creating your dream life. I'm Sonia Marta, and this is the Smart Podcast. See you next week on Monday.